Hi guys, this is Sam and welcome to Logic. In today's advanced vocabulary and listening video, I want to talk to you about my recent trip to Budapest in Hungary, and since I was there during the elections, I also want to share with you my thoughts on what I experienced there regarding how Hungarians felt about the elections and also about how they feel about their future in their country, as I have to say it was a bit of a disheartening realization of a completely different reality for me, and it resulted in a sort of a wake-up call for me because it made me reflect on what we have here in England as a country and on the fact that we actually have a lot here in England that we take for granted and that I'd always assumed was a sort of a given in most countries, at least in Europe, but it turns out that they're not. Before we start, I want to make it crystal clear that I'm not here to discuss politics and I'm not trying to sway you in any particular political direction. This is just a different way for me to shower you with a lot of advanced vocabulary. Plus, I am completely ignorant about politics and simply oblivious to it. I've tried to become more interested in it, but my brain simply won't retain the information. So this is just an account of what was happening right before my eyes while I was there. Before we delve into this specific topic, I'd like to say a few words about Budapest from a tourist point of view. I was there from the 31st of March to the 4th of April, and despite the diabolical weather, I have to say the city is beautiful. It's very easy to get around, its public transport system is very efficient, it's very cheap, at least if the pound is your currency, and above all, it's stunning. The monuments and buildings in general are huge and majestic, and for me the parliament is simply breathtaking. It's so big and imposing that you can hardly take it all into one picture, and obviously on the inside it's great, but for me it's even better on the outside because you can really appreciate its magnificence as it's so big, and I love the colour of it, the shape, and it stretches across such a large amount of space that it makes you feel tiny and like it's protecting you and hugging you. I know I'm making this very romantic and it's just a building, but it really blew me away. The castle is also sublime and the Fisherman's Bastion is a true gem. You can just sit there and soak up all the beauty of the city, especially the Parliament, which is on the other side of the Danube. Speaking of which, the Danube is the river that runs through the city, splitting it into two, and what I noticed is that compared to the Thames in London, it falls down on walkability. The banks of the Thames are designed to be walked along. There are nice trees, lights, buildings. It's a very nice walk to have in the summer, and at night it's actually quite romantic with all the lights from the banks reflected in the water. It's a brilliant idea for a first date, and if you come to London, I highly recommend you set aside a little bit of time to enjoy this walk. The banks of the Danube, on the other hand, have none of that. They are very practical and functional because trams and buses run along them, but they have nothing to see or enjoy, and from that perspective we can say that they leave a lot to be desired. The friend that I went to visit told me that the council are aware of this situation, so they might be able to modify it in the future. Now it's time for me to stop being a tour guide and to bring your attention back to what inspired this video in the first place, namely the effect of the Hungarian political environment on Hungarians. Again, this is not a political campaign in any way, shape or form. To be completely honest, I didn't even know the elections would be held when I booked my trip. I simply went to Hungary because my Hungarian friend who lives in London was in Budapest at the time, so that's why I went there, and I just so happened to be there while all of this was unfolding. My friend has always told me how stagnant career and general life prospects are in Hungary due to low salaries and a lot of rules that seem to be designed to stifle personal success and development, which is why she's in England. But up until my trip to Budapest, I hadn't quite grasped the extent of the damage, if you will. As you may or may not know, the Conservative Party won once again by a landslide, and without meaning to paint everyone with the same brush, there seems to be a clear divide between the Hungarians that live in the big cities, like Budapest, who are more progressive and forward-looking, and those who live in smaller towns and in the countryside, who tend to lean towards a more conservative approach. I talked to my friends' friends and other locals that I met, and what I found absolutely heart-wrenching was their feeling of helplessness and powerlessness towards what was happening. From what I could gather, jobs are available, but they don't pay well at all, to the point where if you live in Budapest, it will be hard to make ends meet. Or if you want a more financially comfortable situation and lifestyle, you might have to resort to and settle for jobs that may not be exactly what you want to do. My friend is a dental technician, and as an employee, she wouldn't be able to afford rent, food, and a basic lifestyle on a Hungarian salary. What basically every single local that I met said was that they didn't know how much longer they would be living in Hungary due to the bleak future prospects brought on by this government. And what I found absolutely devastating was to see how these people feel like they're being hounded out of their own country. I moved to London from Italy, but it was my choice. It was not a reflection on how bad Italy is or how limited I thought my future would be if I stayed. And if you move abroad because you want to, that's absolutely fine. But all the Hungarians that I met made a point of stressing how much they actually love their country and that they would like to stay. But if they want to have a chance at a decent life, they simply must leave. And again, it was heartrending to see how these people felt like these new elections really dealt a death blow to their hopes and pulled the rug out from under them. So all they have to do now is resign themselves to the fact that big changes are probably on the way. Furthermore, apparently some areas of educations are designed so they can't prepare and train you well enough to learn the craft or subject that you're interested in. And the last thing that really got to me was the fact that some Hungarians have already come to terms with the fact that they might have to leave, and some of them want to come to London, but because of Brexit, it's not as easy as it used to be to move to England, and that really felt like yet another uncalled for spoke in their wheel. This whole experience got me thinking about what we have here in England, specifically in London. Here we are extremely lucky because personal progress, development and careers are encouraged, supported and fostered. From what I can see around me, we more or less all have the opportunity to try and make it in this world, doing what we like. Everything is possible here, which doesn't mean it's easy, but we do stand a chance. It's up to us to work hard to achieve what we want, but if we do that and stick it out, it usually pays off. And this brings us to the end of my very philosophical observation. If you like this video, please don't forget to give it a thumbs up and to subscribe to my channel down below. And do let me know in the comments what you think about what I've discussed here. And if you come from Hungary, you can let me know your thoughts on what I said and if you agree or disagree. And if you come from a different country, you can also let me know if you're going through the same situation over there. In the meantime, I will see you on Thursday and Monday with my quick vocabulary videos, and on Tuesday with my next explanation one.